Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we will be doing a watercolor illustration, and I wanted to show you the steps that I take from start to finish when creating a watercolor painting. So basically, as you can see here, I am starting off with the rough sketch. I'm not worrying at all about details at this point, simply because I will do that when I start the watercolor portion. Right now, I'm focusing mainly on just getting the shapes for the illustration and not worrying at all, like I said, about the details. I love this part of the illustration because honestly, it leaves room for you to make mistakes and have things not done correctly, because you can go back and fix it at this point. So my sketches are usually pretty sloppy somewhat, and I'm not worrying too much about it. As you can see right here, it's funny, I looked back at this during the editing and I was cringing because I realized I gave her 6 fingers. Yeah, 6 actual fingers. I don't know how I didn't notice that while I was drawing it, but I didn't. So yeah, that happened. But don't worry, I do realize it and fix it within this video. So yeah, just, bear with me. I actually don't love drawing hands. It takes a lot of practice drawing hands, and I don't try to focus on super realism in my illustrations, as you can already tell, but I just noticed that, drawing hands for me has always been somewhat of a challenge. So that's that. And right now I'm just finishing up the rest of her body. And I did take a proportions class actually in college, believe it or not. And it was really helpful, getting the basics of how things are supposed to be done and how the body shapes are supposed to be created and all of that. But I find that I tend to usually make my body proportions a little off, and I don't focus too much on super realism, which I find adds a little bit of character and it just adds to my style. So, if you're new to drawing, definitely practice the fundamentals, but play around and find your groove. And if you're really not interested in super realism, then, play around and find what works for you. So I'm almost done with the sketch here. I basically have everything down. Yay, I'm fixing the hand here. Yeah, that was definitely pretty sad. So yeah, I'm pretty much done with the sketch here. I'll be adding in some extra details and accents like the plant that I'm drawing, and then we'll go from there. So I'll let you finish watching the video and listening to the peaceful music playing while I draw, and I'll get back to you once I start on the color for this illustration. So as you can see, I am using marker for her face and her skin tone. I'm using the hazelnut color in Artist Loft, which I realized I didn't like, so I'm covering that with the color Mocha in Artist Loft. And I really like these markers. They're pretty much the generic version of Copic markers. So if you're used to using Copics, these are pretty close, just half the price. So if you're interested in pretty affordable art supplies and you're just getting started using markers, I would definitely recommend these. They're awesome and they work really well. The color is great, the vibrancy is great, and they last a fairly decent amount of time. So I'm going to be starting the watercolor now, and I wanted to note that I will be doing the first layer for all of the colors that I'm adding into the illustration, which, as you can see, it's really, really light. So I diluted the color pretty heavily with the water just so that I can get the lightest color possible. And then once that dries, I will add onto what I already have to build the colors. So that's one thing with watercolor, it works really great once you start off light and just build your way up. So that's a pretty general rule for most painting mediums. You want to start really light and then work your way adding more. So as you can see, I messed up here, but I erased it. So the best way to erase watercolor is dipping your brush onto your paper towel and then wiping it up simply with the same brush, and it just picks up the paint right off the paper. The best way about going for that is to make sure you catch the mistake right away if you messed up, because once it dries, it's really hard to go back and make corrections. So definitely, if you mess up during the watercolor, don't worry, try your best to catch it as soon as possible and you can fix it. So I'm adding my second layer of green onto the plants, and as you can see, the color has gotten brighter. So I basically added more paint to the water that I had just to add a more vibrant color and bring out the green for the leaves. Same thing for her shirt. I'm adding the second layer, so I added more paint to my water that I had, which basically just makes the color stand out more. And like I mentioned earlier, you can add more paint and layers on top of layers as long as you wait for your painting to dry. When it comes to watercolor, you want to definitely make sure your first layer is dry before adding more paint, because if you do not wait, you'll find that your paper will get very murky and soggy, if that's the right word, and you will lift the paper and it just becomes a huge mess. So just, be patient with watercolor. Let the paper dry and then add your second layers, third layers, fourth layers, all of that. So I'm going in right now with a Micron fine liner in number 01. This is the brown, and I'm just going in and highlighting different parts of her face and her hair, adding more details. This pen is great for basically adding details. So I'm going in, adding texture to her hair. And it's awesome because this number 01 is really, really small. I think it's the smallest one that they have, but it works great for adding fine line details. So this color that I'm adding for her hair is the same brown that I used originally, which is, I believe it's burnt sienna. So it's like a reddish brown. And I'm going in, adding darkness to her hair and shadows to her face with this color. And it's awesome using this, watercolors over the marker. As you can see, it picks up the color really well. So yes, definitely check out those markers if you're interested in starting, illustrating. It's definitely a great investment if you're not ready to commit to Copics, because Copics are pretty pricey. Definitely worth it, but pretty pricey. So right now I'm adding some color details to her face with some color pencils. I'm using the Prismacolor color pencils. As you can definitely see, I use them often, so some of them are really small. But I'm going over her face and just adding colors throughout. I definitely recommend being creative when it comes to skin tones. I'm using colors like purple and blue and orange just to bring out different aspects of her skin. It's almost as if the light is illuminating on her face in a really interesting way, and it's different and unexpected. So whenever I do skin tones, I just love adding random colors that you wouldn't necessarily expect to be there. And you might surprise yourself once you start adding different colors and seeing that, wow, it actually looks pretty cool. So yeah, I'm adding blue, and it almost, it just looks like the light is reflecting off of her face. Definitely experiment when it comes to blending your colors. Like I said, you will definitely surprise yourself with what you'll come up with if you just get creative and blend random colors together. I don't think I mentioned it, but I did use a blender pencil for the skin for her face, which is an awesome tool to just help make the colors more cohesive and flat, and it just brings all the colors together. So right now I'm doing one of my favorite parts, which is erasing the pencil lines that you saw me create in the beginning. And I love it because it just brings out the painting. And I'm going over the rest of the illustration by adding more colors and darkening up her shirt. I'm giving the illusion that, there's shadows and light reflecting onto her shirt. So definitely play around with the watercolor. I'm using the white Jelly Roller gel pen to add highlights to her face, and I'm not being super particular on where I add the highlights either. I'm just kind of playing around at this point and just seeing what looks right. So The jelly roller is awesome for just adding a pop of shine to any illustration, really. It makes the appearance that, you know, light is reflecting again off of her face. So I'm adding it pretty much all throughout and seeing what looks right. I realized that I didn't care too much for it in her hair, so I attempt at painting over it. I'm going in with the fine liners and just adding more details throughout the painting. Alright guys, there you have it. This is the finished painting. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this, and if you're at all interested in purchasing a print of this illustration, definitely check the description box below. I'll leave the link to my Etsy account, which is where you'll find this print. And until next time guys, feel free to subscribe to my channel and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of that below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks again so much for watching and have a great day. Bye.